So in the previous session, we have discussed about like operator, and we have discussed what exactly like operator and what is the use. How can we use this like operator to fetch the similar kind of details from the Salesforce object by preparing an expression with the help of wildcard characters. So what kind of wildcard characters that Salesforce supports, and what is the significance of each wildcard character we have discussed in the previous session, and how to implement them we have discussed with the practical use cases. Now today we'll see dynamic SOQL queries, how to prepare dynamic SOQL query, and what is the use, how to execute them. We'll see one by one. So theoretically we have discussed what exactly dynamic SOQL, how to prepare, how to execute, how it will be returning the results we have discussed in the previous session. Now let me repeat that part. As of now, we have prepared few SOQL queries where each SOQL query we have enclosed with the square braces. We are going to preparing the SOQL query. SOQL query has been enclosed with square braces. That means what? Whenever we are going to be using this square braces, the query has been freezed. Okay, the query has been freezed. So at runtime, this query can't be editable. We can't add any more columns to the query. We can't add any more conditions to the query at runtime. So the query will be completely freezed. So we can't modify, it will be static. But in some cases, I want to pass some columns to the query at runtime. I want to add some conditions to the query at runtime. Then how can we add the columns to the query? How to add conditions to the query dynamically at runtime? Okay, for that one we are using the help of dynamic SOQL query. That means we are preparing the query dynamically at runtime upon executing our application. While my program is getting executed, I would like to prepare that query by adding the required columns, by adding the required conditions at runtime. Now, so that here dynamic SOQL query should be editable. That's what here dynamic SOQL query should be always enclosed with single quote. That means we need to store this dynamic SOQL queries in the form of string variable. We need to store dynamic SOQL queries in the form of a string variable here. So once the query has been stored in the form of a string variable, then we can execute this SOQL query with the help of database.query method. We are using database.query method. Database is a built-in class which has been given by Salesforce by default, which is used to connect to the database.com, which is used to interact with the Salesforce objects through programmatically. So in this case, as part of this database class, we have a static method that is called as a query. So what is this query method? This query method is going to be executing this SOQL query, and once the query has been executed, it returns the results in the form of a list collection. It returns the result in the form of list collection. So database.query method will be always returning the result in the form of list collection. Then, so in this case, as part of dynamic SOQL query, first of all, prepare the query by storing inside a string variable. Once the query has been formed, then we need to execute that query with the help of a method called as a database.query method, which always returns the result in the form of list collection. That is the functionality of database.query method. Then how can we use this database.query method to execute the query? Now let me show you with the practical. Okay. Now, Now here I would like to make the things a bit complex. Now, my requirement is I want to prepare a method. I want to prepare a method. This method will be taking one string parameter value as input. Okay, I would like to prepare a method which will take a string value as input. Now, for example, here I'm passing the string like as, for example, test. Now, so now tell me, is it a normal string or is it an email ID? It's a normal string or email ID? Normal. Sometimes I'm passing like this. Is it a normal string or email ID? Email
Email
ID
ID.
here. So now
Email.
it may be a string, it may be email ID which are having some characters. So now I will pass any one of this. I will pass any one of this, either test or either email ID here. So now whenever I'm passing your input value, only one input value will pass. Either this one or either this one here. Email ID. Any one of this value I will pass here. Whenever we are passing this value, string value to the method as input, now my method has to identify whatever the input value we have supplied, is it a normal string or is it an email ID? My program has to decide. Okay, my program has to decide whatever the input value that we have supplied, whether that value is in the form of a normal string or is it an email ID here. Now, to do this, I would like to use a pattern matching algorithms. So now I would like to use pattern matching algorithm here because email ID contains a specific format like your email name at the rate a domain name will be available here. So that is the format of email ID. Your email name and then at the rate a domain name will be available. Domain name may be gmail.com or it may be test.co.in or test.in or test.org, test.edu, test.net, test.gov.in. Like that, so many domain name formats are available. So now your email name and then an at the rate symbol and then a domain name over here. So now in this case, inside my method, I would like to use the help of pattern matching algorithms. For that one, in Apex programming, we have a class called as pattern class. Pattern. Pattern is a built-in class given by Salesforce. So now inside this class, we have a method called as dot matches. Now, matches. Here I am going to be using this pattern matching algorithm, pattern dot matches. Now, by using this matches method, I would like to check whatever the input value we have supplied, is this input value is in the form of email ID or not. I would like to find out. So now for this email ID, I want to check the regular expressions. I want to use regular expressions in order to check that email ID over here. So now to check the email ID format, we are having some regular expressions in the internet. Just you can copy that regular expression and then we can use the help of matches method. The matches method is going to be comparing whatever the input value we have supplied to the method as parameter. This parameter value and this regular expression both are matching or not. It will compare. So for that one, we are using pattern class. Inside the pattern class, if we are having a matches method, which will be comparing your input value with a regular expression. It will be checking that format here, whether this input value is in the format or not. If it is in the format of email ID, then I want to fetch all the lead records based on this email ID here. That means I want to collect the lead records from the lead object by applying the condition on this email ID field. Suppose whatever the input that have supplied as input, if the parameter value is a normal string, If the parameter value is a normal string, then I want to add the conditions to get the lead record based on last name. Okay. If the input value is in the form of a email ID, then apply the condition based on email field. If the input value is a normal string, then apply the condition based on last name field. That means depends upon your input, my program will decide which condition it has to add. Either email ID condition or it may be last name field condition. So dynamically, I would like to decide. Dynamically at runtime, my program should decide based on what column it has to apply the condition. Whether where class should be used, okay, email field condition, or where class should use, okay, last name field condition over here. If it is email ID, I want to use equality condition. If it is last name, I want to use a like operator over here. So depends upon that functionality, depends upon the input, I will take some dynamic decisions as part of my program. For that reason, we are using the help of dynamic SOQL query here. Okay, understood the concept here? Why we are using dynamic SOQL query? But if it is a normal static SOQL, it will be fixed. Okay, it will be fixed. Conditions are fixed and then fields are fixed. But here, this condition, based on what condition you want to filter the records, either email ID condition or last name condition, that should be decided by my program. Based on what? Based on your input. If you're passing the input in the form of a string, it will add the condition based on last name. If you're passing the input in the form of email ID, it will add the condition based on email field over. Okay, understood the concept now? Now make a note of this one here. Let's take a small use case. Write an Apex program to fetch the lead records from the lead object based on the specified input value at runtime. If the input value is in the form of string, then we have to use last name field to apply the condition. If the input value is in the form of email address, then we have to use email field to apply the condition. Now, use the pattern matching algorithms to check for the email ID validation. Done with this? Now, so let me prepare the method. Done, everyone? I'm going to my Salesforce R. Now, so let me go to my class which we have prepared. This is the class which we have prepared in our previous sessions. Now, I'm preparing a method. Public static void search lead records. Now, I'm preparing a method with the name search lead records where I'm passing that search content over here. Now, my first step is I would like to check whether this parameter value is empty or not. That is what we need to verify. Suppose if the search content value is either empty or null, I don't want to waste my SOQL query because SOQL queries are very, very important. And then don't waste these SOQL queries. That too, we have very limited per transaction, that is only 100. So we need to utilize them very efficiently. So check the condition first. If the search content is not equals to null and the search content is not equals to empty. So whatever the parameter that we have, if the parameter value is not null and not empty, then I would like to check whether this input value, that means whether this search content is in the form of email ID or not. So that here I would like to use that, okay, a method called as pattern.matches. Pattern is a built-in class which is having a ready-made method called as a matches, which will be comparing this input value with a specific regular expression. If both are matching, then it returns true or else it returns false. Now I'm using this. If pattern dot matches, here I'm passing that search content. Here we need to specify the regular expression. Now I will copy the regular expression from the Google, because in the Google you will be having so many regular expressions will be available here for so many, okay, format validations like your passport number validation, credit card validation, driving license number validation, and then US insurance policy number validation, email ID validations here, PAN number validations, and then SSN number validations. Like that, here they will be having some specific regular expressions. Now, in order to validate that email ID validation here, So this is the regular expression here. For the email ID, okay, this is the regular expression which they are going to be generating through with the help of some tools. So in the internet, we are having so many tools are available to generate this kind of regular expressions over here. Now I would like to check if this particular content is in this particular format, then matches method will return true. Then I would like to show the message. System.debug. Now the input string is an email address. Else, that means if the content is not in this particular format, then it's a normal string. System.debug input string is a string value. Just I would like to compare here. I'm testing that whether my regular expression is working properly or not. For that one, just I'm going to be checking that here. Once the regular expression is working, then we can go with the help of our dynamic SOQL query part. Now, whatever the input value that we have supplied, I want to check whether this input value is in the form of email ID or not. For that one, this is the regular expression we have used. Whether this regular expression is working properly or not, I would like to check it out. Now let me invoke this method. Now I would like to specify such a lead records. I'm passing the value some test. Now tell me, is it a normal string or email ID? Normal string. Click on execute. Let's check. Select the debug only. Now it is indicating input value is a string value. Suppose I'm passing one email ID here. Let me go to my lead object. Let me copy one email ID here. Is it a normal string or is it an email ID?
Email ID.
What? Email ID or string? Email ID. Right. Click on execute. Input string is a string value. It is not taking this underscore character, I think. If the such content is matching with this format, email address. If I'm passing like this, it is showing string value. That means regular expression is not working properly. Now, I'm using this regular expression for this email ID format. Let me check. Is it an email ID or normal string? Email ID. Input string is a string value. against you. This it is showing against you. Pattern dot matches. Such content value, if it is in this format, suppose let me take another email ID. Input string is a string value. So let me check the pattern class methods matches. Now we need to pass regular expression first and then string input value next. Then here we need to pass such content. So now first of all we have to pass a regular expression here. Then we need to pass that such content here. Now let me test it now. I'm passing this email address. So I have supplied one email ID here. It is indicating input string is the email ID value. Suppose for example if I'm passing like this, then input string is a normal string value. So regular expression is working fine. So now this is the regular expression I would like to use over here. So now here we have used regular expression and then we have identified whatever the input value the user has supplied, whether that input value is in the form of a normal string or in the form of an email ID, we have verified first. Then once it is done, then we need to prepare the conditions here. Now here I would like to prepare the query. String lead records query equals to I would like to fetch. Select the ID of the lead record, first name, last name, email, company, title, status from lead. I'm writing only up to that part over here, only up to that lead. I'm not adding any condition. Here, based on this input value type, I would like to add the condition. Suppose if the input value is of type an email ID, then I would like to add the condition over here. How can we add lead records query plus equals to? That means whatever the query we have prepared, for this query I am appending something over here plus equals to. What I am going to append, where email ID, that means email ID equals to colon this particular email ID value. That means search content. This is the query. That means what? First of all, I'm preparing half of the query over here. Later, based on this condition result, if the input value is of type an email ID, then I'm adding the condition. For this query, I'm adding that where class where email ID value equals to the search content, because search content is nothing but my email ID value over here. Else, that means suppose if the input value is of type string, then what needs to be done? In this case, I would like to add in the form of like operator over here, so that I'm indicating such a content plus equals to, I'm adding percentage. Because I'm passing simply test, we need to add percentage symbol, right? For that one, I'm adding this percentage symbol. Then I would like to add the condition over here. Lead records query plus equals to, I'm using where last name like such content. I'm using this like operator. Depends upon the requirement here. So now if the input value is of type email ID, I'm adding the condition based on email address here. Or else I'm using the condition based on okay, last name field. So now if it is an email ID, I'm using exact comparison. If it is a last name, I'm going to be using that like operator over here to compare this value. Clear? So now once the whole query has been formed, then we can execute the query here. How to execute? Database dot query method. Here we need to pass lead records query, which returns the result in the form of list collections. List of lead. I would like to show that confirmation. System dot debug lead records count. I would like to indicate lst leads dot size. Then I would like to check. The remaining story will be same, no change. Just you can able to print the records by iterating the collection. For each and every lead record from LST leads, I would like to represent the lead record. That's it. Now this part will be the same. You know, now up to this part is different. So now we have to prepare the query first. Once the query has been prepared, then we can able to execute the query by using database start query method, which always returns the result in the form of list collection. The query may be returning either one record, query may be returning multiple records also. Return type of query method will be always list. That is the difference. If it is a static SOQL, it can return the result in the form of single variable, or it can return the result in the form of collection. But dynamic SOQL query will be always in the form of list collection. Static SOQL query will be enclosed with square braces. Dynamic SOQL query will be enclosed with single quote. Static SOQL query will be executing automatically. Dynamic SOQL query we need to invoke manually by using database.query method, because it's a common question in most of the interviews, difference between static and dynamic SOQL queries. Okay. Now, colon is for what? Dynamic assignment here, because whatever the input value, such a content that we have, this is such a content I would like to substitute in this place. That's what here we are using colon symbol. This one. Hmm. Exact comparison, equality comparison. Okay. Clear up to this one? Now, let me execute this piece of code. So now here we are going to passing the value. Now I would like to specify the character B, single character over here. Now tell me in this case, based on what field it will be adding the conditions? Last name or email ID? Last name. Why last name? Because it's a single character. That means string. So now it will be adding the condition based on last name. When I click on execute, now it is indicating input value is based on string. So it is fetching those records based on last name. Okay, whose last name is starting with the character B. Now, suppose for example, if I'm passing one email ID over here, assume that I will pass one email ID. You can pass any email ID whatever you want here, no issues. Now tell me here, based on what field it will be adding the condition now? Email field, because I'm passing the input value R, okay, of type email ID here. It is indicating input string is based on email ID. There is one matching record is available here. Clear? Understood the concept now? This is the way we can able to prepare dynamic SOQL query here. Understood the concept now? No. Make a note of this code. But don't write this expression, just you can able to give some dots. Okay. So now remaining code you can write it here.
Hello, sir. Could you please scroll up, sir, please?
Done with this? Now. So now let's see one more small use case. Now, for example, I have a requirement like this. For example, I have case subject. I have case subject. In this case subject, we have 150 records. Now my requirement is I want to use an Apex program which is used to get the count of these case records. I want to get count of these case records. How many cases are available in this object? I want to get the count. What we can do? Size method. Size method means what? First of all, we have to write an SOQL query. Query will collect all the records, store into the collection. Once the records are available in the form of collection, then get the collection size that will indicate how many number of records available in that object here. That means in this case, what we are doing, we are collecting the records from that case object through SOQL query. We are storing them to the collection. In order to store this 150 records, collection will occupy some memory, right? Then what we need, just we want the count. In order to get the count, really do I need to waste my memory to store these records? No, I don't want to get the records. Without getting the records, I want to get the count. That's it. I don't want to maintain any collections. I don't want to waste my memory. I don't want to store the records in my collection. Just I want the record count. I don't want the records. Then what we can do? Limit is used to restrict the number of records to return. I want the count of those records. Sorry? Right. We can use that count function. Generally, when you go to that, okay, relationship concept, there we have discussed about a feature called as roll-up summary fields. In that roll-up summary fields, we are going to be using some roll-up types like count and then sum, minimum, maximum. We are using 4 functions over here. Here also we can use the help of count function. Then what this count function will do? Count function is just to count the records available inside the object. It returns that count value. Count value means what? What type of value it will return? Count value means what? What type of value my query will returns? Integer. Okay.
Integer value.
Integer, or is it a double? Integer only, because we don't have any decimal digits, so it will be purely integer here. That means what? Upon using this count function inside my SOQL query, the query will return a value of type integer here. Okay, understood the concept now? Now, observe the scenario here. Now, a normal static SOQL query will be returning the value in the form of a single object. It is returning in the form of a list collection. Now, it is returning the value in the form of integer. So, static SOQL query return type will be either an integer or a single object or list collection over here. These are the 3 return types are available for static SOQL query. Okay. Understood the concept here? Now, let's see. How can we implement this functionality through static SOQL? How to do the same by using dynamic SOQL? Let me show you. Now, make a note of this use case. Write an Apex program to count the number of records exist in the case object. Write an Apex program to count the number of records exist in the case object. Done with this? Now, let me show you. I am preparing a method get cases count. I'm using static SOQL. Then how can we implement? We'll see. And then later we'll see dynamic SOQL query. I'm preparing static SOQL. Select count function from case, which returns the result in the form of an integer value. Integer records count. I would like to represent this value over here on the debug log file. System.debug number of case records count. Okay. Whenever if you want to fetch this data, that means how many number of case records are available in the case object. To count those case records, we are using the help of count function, which always returns the result in the form of integer value here. Next, dynamic SOQL query. We need to prepare the query, store into string variable. We need to execute by using database class. So I'm using string. Now cases query equals to, I'm using the same query. I'm not changing any query over here. Query will be same. We are storing this SOQL query inside the string variable. Now we need to execute. Database dot. As of now, to execute the SOQL queries, we are using query method. Query method will be returning the result in the form of list collection. But now here what we are doing, we are just counting the records. For that one, we have to use a method called as count query method. Inside the SOQL query, if you are using count method, then SOQL query will be returning the result in the form of integer. So to get that integer value, we have to use that count query method. Don't use normal query method. If you want records, then go with that query method. If you want integer value, then go with count query method. Now, I'm storing the result. Integer cases count. I would like to represent system.debug number of case records found. I'm indicating cases count. This is static SOQL. This is a dynamic SOQL. Now, so now here we are going to be counting the number of records available inside my case object. We are not getting the records. Without getting the records, we are going to be counting how many number of records are available. When you go to the login screen, upon click on login button, behind every login button, this is the query they will use internally here. They will be counting that. Select count from like some user object where username equals to whatever the username that you have passed and password equals to whatever the password we have entered over here. So now with this username, with this password, how many number of records are available, they will count. Suppose if the method is written, query is returning the value 1, that means what? With this username, with this password, there is one record is available. That means what here? Your username and the password is correct. Because here whatever the username and the password we have entered with these details, one record is available. That means your username and password is correct. So it will allow us to enter into the application. Suppose if there is no matching records are found, it will return the value 0. 0 means what? No username, no password with this matching condition. That means whatever the credentials you have entered, this is invalid here. So that it will show the message invalid username or password. That is the query here. Behind each and every login button, you will be having this count function related SOQL query will be available here. Okay. Understood the concept now? Now, let me invoke this method. Get cases count. Click on execute. Select the debug only. Now both are returning the results, okay, which will be having same results over here. Now total 27 case records are available in my case object. It may be static SOQL, it may be dynamic SOQL, both are returning same results over here. Clear? Now, so this is how we can able to count the number of records exist inside my object without fetching the data from the object here. Clear? Understood the concept now? This is the concept of dynamic SOQL query. And then we have two small important features are available, like we are having for update class, and we have offset class. We'll see both in tomorrow's session here, and then tomorrow we'll see one more concept called as DML statements. What exactly DML statement? How to use them? We'll see in tomorrow's session here. Okay. But SOQL queries are very, very important. Don't miss that part because it's a lengthy topic here. DML statements also will take 4 sessions minimum, 4 to 5 sessions. Then if you know this one here, so now as of now, whatever the topics we are going to discuss, like our fundamental concept, conditional statements, iterative statements, collections also, and then arrays also, and then SOQL queries, and then SOS, we are using DML statement. All these things we are mixing together into triggers concept here. After the DML statements, we'll see triggers. In triggers, all these things we are mixing together over here. Okay, so that topics are interlinked topics over here, so that don't miss the topics, do the practice on regular basis, don't make the things pending. Okay, clear? Thank you.